Jumpers, skippers, and accidental rope whippers. Welcome to the Jump Rope Podcast, episode 24, where today's guest is here to prove that jump rope isn't just a workout, it's a finely tuned dance with gravity. Folks, we've got Coach Nate KG in the house, and he's about to blow your mind with his incredible knowledge of jump rope mechanics, body movement, and some Jedi-level coaching insights. You ever wonder if you're warming up correctly, cooling down properly, or even breathing the right way? I tell you, Nate's got you covered. Plus, he'll settle once and for all whether chasing completion or efficiency is the secret sauce to your jump rope journey. Spoiler alert, it's probably a little of both. So grab your ropes, limber up those calves, and prepare to laugh, learn, and level up your skipping game. Let's jump right in with the master himself, Coach Nate KG. Yeah! Nate KG, thank you so much for joining me on the Jump Rope Podcast. I'm so excited to have you here.
I'm pumped to be here. This is going to be a good one. I'm really stoked. I've listened to like one of your episodes and I've tried not to, like it has taken a lot of energy to not listen to more because I wanted to come in really fresh and I'm really pumped. This is going to be a lot of fun. You do a great job.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. I've listened to some of your episodes as well. And for the Nate KG podcast, for those out there who don't know, Nate has his own podcast and it's fantastic. And one of the things I learned really quickly is I am a newbie, you know, like all of the acronyms for all of the different, you know, tricks
so
and stuff
names.
like that. Yeah, there's so many acronyms and so many names, and you know that technical stuff so deeply. And so it's a thrill to listen to. I learn a lot.
Cool. I'm glad. I'm really glad.
Yeah. So Nate, can you tell us where you're at, like in the world?
Yeah, sure. I'm in Southern California, born and raised.
Nice. Good jump rope weather?
Oh, yeah, pretty much. I can't complain, especially when we're talking like East Coast, you know, or like middle of the country. We don't get snow. So I think right there automatically makes it pretty optimal for jumping. Right.
Yeah. We get snow here in Minnesota, so I deal with that.
Yeah, that's tough.
I don't know. It's beautiful. It's fun. I've learned to layer, you know, like I've learned to take a hot shower, get out of the shower, put on long underwear, put on a few layers, like 4 shirts, a couple hoodies, go out and sweat.
Well, the nice thing is you kind of have built-in armor protection for jumping. Right. Like you've got all those layers, like you just won't get to your skin, so you're good.
You know, I would say that's right, except that when it's really cold, beaded rope smacks on the butt are, vicious.
They're the worst. They're the absolute worst. Yeah, it just gets burned into your soul. Like no one gets it too. They're like, why? Like, I don't understand. You just told me you spent an hour just being hurt the whole time. You're like, yeah, it was great. It was awesome. Yeah. Like, I don't get it. It's like,
best part of my day.
You had to be there.
Yeah. So you have been a professional jump rope coach for over a decade, right?
It's been a while. Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't know the exact day because like it's kind of the way it works is like when you get into jump rope, you pretty much already start teaching other people. And then it just kind of slowly levels up over time. So like even as I first started jumping when I was a kid, you would just teach people on the team or you would go to workshops and be in charge of like, you know, staffing for different groups. And so in the competitive world, the way it kind of works is that you have a couple, you know, or a team or two host a workshop, bring in, you know, 100 or if you're lucky, a couple hundred different jumpers, all youth. And then you choose usually just those who are the most skilled, end up teaching little cohorts so you'll be in charge of like 3 to 4 kids at a time, depending on how busy it is. So did a lot of that. But that's very different than coaching adults. It's not even close to being the same because kids are like Gumby. They just figure it out. You're like, do the trick, but like just do it a little better. They're like, oh, a little better. Okay, I got this, you know, it just works. So it's fun. So that's how I grew up, is like being one of those kids that was learning from the older kids, you know, the ones who were so good. And then eventually, you know, getting to move into a role where I would teach the kids, which is always super fun. And then eventually it moves into, you know, once I kind of went to college, it shifted a little bit because when you get to college, you're a little more focused on career and just more adult stuff because you're in the adult where you're trying to get into the adult world anyway. And so I did a lot of personal training stuff there, kind of learning fitness and that side of things. And then got connected with Dave Newman over at RX Smart Gear. RX Smart Gear originally made jump rope specifically for CrossFit. That was kind of the origin. They've expanded to a lot of different types of ropes now, but that was kind of the origins. And I got connected with Dave because he contacted my team and wanted us to kind of come in and like try out the ropes and see how it was. And he's a phenomenal guy. We've had a good relationship for a very, very long time. And so he would bring us out to different CrossFit events, regionals, CrossFit regionals, CrossFit games. and we would work in their vendor booth. So they would set up a tent, kind of have like a spot set up, and then some mats to jump on. Depending on the event, like CrossFit Games, it's a big event. We'd have a lot of mats out. Yeah. Regionals and other smaller ones, not quite as many, but every single time you'd have people coming by asking questions about jump ropes and then getting a chance to like actually work with them and kind of a quick like 30-second to 3-minute, like, here's what you got to do. And then like just getting them to feel a difference in their form like literally immediately. And so that was kind of very eye-opening because it was very different than when you work with adults, especially CrossFitters who are not necessarily at the time, not necessarily interested in jump rope. They just kind of want to get through their workouts, you know? You have to change the way you approach how you're talking to them completely. Sure. So, and then Dave also would do seminars, 3-hour-long seminars, roughly 3-hour-long seminars, just on double unders and doing consistent double unders. Not what we know, like not like crosses and like free, just a strict regular double under. And like
3 hours of double under?
3 hours of a seminar, not necessarily 3 hours of double unders. Yeah. No, we actually, believe it or not, the way the seminar would flow is you wouldn't even get to the double under until like 1.5, 2 hours in. Okay. Like there's a lot of prep work and sometimes even longer than that. So that seminar really was where I understood that there was detail and an actual process behind coaching jump rope. I had taught jump rope casually before. I think this is something that most people are familiar with. It has kind of moved into, on Instagram anyway, it's pretty obvious when you see posts all the time, people giving quick tips and stuff. And I think that that's really awesome because that's it's really weird. Like jump rope, like as soon as you learn, you're like, I should probably tell someone how to do this. Like, it's just like, I don't know why, it just like works that way. And so that is like kind of like the general tip giving. That was kind of what I was used to in terms of coaching and then working with Dave and then also simultaneously going through like personal training stuff and understanding the body a little different in terms of levers and physics and thinking of it that way. I realized, there's a lot of depth here. There's a lot of depth I haven't really even fully uncovered, you know? Yeah. And so then fast forward many more years and then boom, here we are.
Yeah. That's one thing that I think really comes through in your videos is your deep understanding of body mechanics and jump rope in general. I mean, one of the things that, you helped me with releases. You didn't know it, but watching some of your videos, like I was just flailing around with releases and, you know, I had input from a coach and other people, and I'd watched a bunch of videos, but the clear, straightforward way that you illustrate things in your videos, the slow-mo, the turning around and showing the different angles just really, really helped me. And I'm glad. And every time I watch your videos, it just like your understanding of how the body moves, how the rope moves, and where you need to be in order to get what you want done, just comes through in spades. So
I appreciate that. I definitely, it's like a funny, weird thing. Like as I've kind of gone through and tried to work on videos and think about this, you kind of do like a J curve, or like you kind of like get to like the most complicated it could possibly be. And you're like, wow, this is too much. How do I simplify everything back down to like 3 words?
Right.
So I really try hard to not be too wordy, even though I still get lots of complaints online of people saying like, you talk too much.
Really?
But you know, all the time. It's hilarious. I'm like, I don't know how to not talk too much, so you're going to have to deal with it. Yeah.
Man, that's the part I like. I like knowing more about the mechanics and stuff. I don't think you talk too much.
Well, I am always long-winded, so I'm always happy, especially on something like this, to just keep on going.
Yeah. Well, so that's one of the things I love about you is that your deep understanding about the technique and body mechanics and stuff, and your no nonsense way of breaking down tricks. I also months ago signed up for your Kickstart program. On your website, you have a 14-day Kickstart program that's free for beginners, and man, I found that so helpful. Like,
good. I'm glad.
Yeah,
you still enjoyed it because your skills are like, you're kind of like crushing it. I'm surprised that was still relevant for you.
Well, it was a few months ago, but
okay,
it doesn't matter. I can learn from anything, and I've got.
Well, I'm really pumped to hear that it helped.
Yeah. No, it's super helpful. And then your podcast, I mentioned your podcast already. That's fantastic. And then you had the statement on your site. In fact, so for those who don't know, Nate has Nateflix, which is a section of his site. If you go to natekg.com, you can find it. But
jump rope combos. Yeah.
Jump rope combos. There you go.
Yeah.
And so there's like 500 combos there, all free to watch, all sorts of great stuff. But you have a statement up at the top that says that you're on a mission to give back as much to the jump rope community as possible. And I just think that's awesome. So good on you for doing that. And my question for you is why? Like, why do you want to get back to the jump rope community?
Because I've had the pain myself. Literally the way I started jumping. So I started, not to be that guy, but I started jumping back in the day. All right.
Yeah. Right.
Back before all this fancy Instagram stuff. And back in the day, it was cool. What are the 10 videos on YouTube that I can rewatch 1,000 times? If you go, like the videos I've watched, they have like, now they've been online for like think at least 13 or 14 years.
Yeah.
And they have maybe 10,000 views. I'm pretty sure I'm like 9,999 of those views. Like literally like, and these are not high quality videos either, right? Like these are some, there you can actually count the pixels in these videos. And like, and that's what I was working with, you know, like a lot of, the skills I would
jump rope videos.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Or like, I remember like one of my favorites was Shane Windsor's routines, and it just was like a 2005, 2007 Nationals routine or something like that. Okay. I might have that date wrong, but it was choppy. And then there's one of the first ones I saw that was so cool was an all-star video. The all-stars in the United States used to be kind of the best of the best that were selected across the entire country on a team of like, I think it was like roughly 20 jumpers. Again, youth focused. So like, typically 15 to 17 years old, some of the best jumpers, and it was awesome. Like that back in like, I think it was like 7, like I think somewhere between like 06 to 08, somewhere around there, that range. That team was like, oh man, not that the later teams were not good, but like that was like my generation where I first saw that team, and I just loved what they did, and those videos. It was really exciting to see the video. You just couldn't really tell what was going on. And so like a lot of the skills that I tried, I was like, I think this, like I had to like really work through like what I thought they were doing and what I thought they were working on. And so it wasn't like now where you get, you know, multiple angles and someone's shooting 4K, 120 FPS and stuff. It's like, good luck. So
yeah, exactly. I mean, that was back when the iPhone first came out. So like, camera phones weren't as prevalent back then.
Yeah, you actually like had to work hard and like have a system of like wires and converters and stuff to get that, you know, like what is it? I forget the name of it, but like an actual tape. There was a size of tape that I had on one of the first cameras I used. It was like a certain size of like a square rectangle tape that you had to like, in later on, I had to figure out how to port all that over onto a computer because it just didn't work. It was really hard, you know?
Yeah.
And now you can like share everything in literally 30 seconds if you just, you know, throw it up there. So that's why, like that was for me. I was like, all I wanted to do was just figure out as much as I could do and just keep going and going and going and going. And fortunately I came across Lee Reisig, absolute true legend of the sport.
Yeah.
And he had obsessed about this on a level that I didn't even know was possible, where he went and created the true like OG Trictionary. And this was him trying to create a shorthand version of naming skills and kind of like having a way for we can all talk about it, because the context that Lee was coming from was he had gone to world championships. He had been with jumpers who a lot of it, you know, not everyone spoke English. And so it's like, how do you have a conversation? How do you work together on these skills? Which when you're in person, it's not too bad because you can just do the skill and like, oh yeah, that one, you know?
Yeah.
But online it's harder. So he went through and kind of put together this system, and Chris Walker and I, a really good friend of mine, we have a lot of fun conversations. We've kind of gone through, and Chris has done a tremendous amount of work, like updating the Trictionary, updating a system. And all of this is to say that like, to see that and like to work really hard to get those videos, to get the resource of like, oh, there is a system to jump rope. Like there's all this. I want to put it out there so that it's not nearly as difficult. And so that you can just focus on doing it and enjoying it and jumping and not spending all of your time searching and trying to gather the information, you know? So yeah. I just think that jump rope has the potential to be a legitimate like sport. Like it is a sport, but I mean, in terms of recognition, right? Instead of having a conversation with a stranger and they're going, yeah, I think I did that when I was in preschool. Like, oh, you mean the sport? Like I think it has the potential to get there, but I do think that information is one of the key elements that's required to get there. So
sure. Yeah. So when exactly did you first start jumping?
probably 2008-ish, I think. I don't remember the exact day. It's, plus or minus a couple of years there. So yeah.
And why?
I had a PE teacher, actually. Yeah, I had a PE teacher who showed us, and she would choose to spend 1 month on a given sport throughout the year. And that's kind of the way she kind of ran things. I think that's pretty cool. And one of those months was, we have jump rope for heart as one of the months. And so that, whatever that month, I think it's like February or something, or March. One of those months she would have us jump rope. And so most people, most of the kids were kind of like, it's kind of fun, but then they kind of get over it. I was like, you're telling me you can do more with this? I was like, wow. And so then a couple of, at a certain point, actually a lot of the kids in my class were really pumped. And so we all were jumping a lot, and we kind of ended up forming a team that way. Yeah.
Really?
First team I was on. Yeah.
Cool. And so when you say you formed a team, did you compete just locally within California?
Basically the way it was set up, and I believe it's still set up, is that you have regional tournaments. So it's like grouped by several different states, and it's basically, who has the most teams in their state, basically.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically what would happen is we would kind of meet up. The way it started is we would meet up before school back in the day. And we would kind of hang out and just try tricks and have fun and put things together. And I don't know how I got this lucky, but literally it must have, the way I remember it, and this could be wrong, but the way I remember it is somewhere within, I think, 4 to 6 months from me starting. I think it could have been a year, but we'll just go with 4 to 6 months for the sake of the podcast, makes it more fun. There was a workshop in Santa Monica, which is not far from where I was. And to put it into context, most of jump rope was like in Texas or like in Idaho or like in different states, not California. California has like 8 teams, and we're a huge state. We only have 8 teams, right? And even within Southern California, there's like a handful. Like there was no reason for us to have a workshop here if you're going strictly based on the density of jump ropers, right?
Sure.
Got so lucky. It was the all-star team that I'm super partial towards. It was like the group of jumpers that I think really defined, at least for me, what jump rope is or was, continues to be. It kind of set the foundation. And they were like, we got to do a full Saturday of like working with all these people. So like Nick Woodard was there, pretty sure Lee Reisig was there, Zev Troxler was there, although he was still one of the people learning at the time, but Zev Troxler was there. Pretty sure Mike was there, Mike Fry. Pretty sure Mike Fry was there.
Nice.
Jeff Moss. Like these names probably don't mean a whole lot to a lot of people, but like for those in the United States who are kind of around, oh yeah, like these are like the actual legends, and there's more than that. I'm just kind of, I don't really remember because like at the time I was like, I don't know who you people are, but this is a lot of fun, Of
course, right.
But I remember learning, I think I learned wheel with Lee Reisig, and I'm sure, I was learning from Mike too at some point. So
amazing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So just before we get into more coaching stuff, I'm curious, you personally with jumping rope, what does it do for you? I mean, aside from, it's your profession and that sort of thing, but like physically, mentally, what do you get from jumping rope?
What don't I get from it? That's a better question. You know what I mean?
What don't you get from jumping rope, Nate?
Yeah, I mean, let's see. So, well, there's the physical aspect of things, of course. That was a lot more, it's a little bit less relevant now, but through being a kid up until through college, I would say like once I finished college, it kind of all changed. Like what jump rope was kind of like shifted for me a little bit. It didn't lose anything. It just kind of grew. But I think obviously jump rope gives you the physical aspect. I didn't understand how like tuned my body was until later, like getting into like real jobs, after college and stuff, you start to understand that your body can like not work. And so it's like, oh, like I was pretty spot on back in the day, like a couple of years ago. So kind of gave me that. There's the meditation aspect of it. I think for some people, the meditation is nonstop jumping at a low intensity. And that's something that I've played with a lot. And in recent years, it's great. Mostly for me, the meditation was the absolute focus on whatever it was I was trying to do. And that's focus across the session. That could be focus across months or years as well. Like in terms of like, if you're focused on going to competition, you're so dialed on that, like you're so into that it just kind of sets your brain a certain way,
Sure.
Let's see, what else has it given me? It's given me an understanding of like what it actually takes to get really good at something. Not to say, and that probably comes off kind of weird, I'm not a world champion. So like, I'm not saying that I'm like top of the top. Clearly I'm not. You can look at my scores. You can look at the routines. Like that's not what the level I was at, but it took so much to get to that. And it took so much to learn a lot of these really difficult skills that I understand what's required. And so like when I look at current world champions or even whatever world champions from when I was jumping, it doesn't matter. Like I know like that intensity it's a lot, you know, and it's really easy to watch stuff on Instagram and just like, even for me, like you see a lot of like the same crazy stuff these days, or like you see like these insane scores. And you're like, so many people like get this. Like, yeah, if you're looking at like top 10 in the world, they're all getting that. But like what it takes to get to that is wild. So it gives me a really good appreciation of that. And then on the actual jumping aspect, on the coaching aspect, it's kind of a similar but different thing of like we were talking about earlier, like understanding the discipline behind coaching and what it takes to become a very, very like successful coach in terms of not me, but like what does it take to be a person who coaches somebody to get a result successfully is what I kind of mean to say. And so like, and it doesn't matter if it's, you can take jump rope out of that. It just happens to be what I focus on. But like, if you look across many coaches, you start to see very quickly, like who has spent a lot of time in the discipline of educating another person to get a specific result. Right.
Yeah.
There's that. There's probably more.
Yeah.
I can keep going if you want, but like those are the first couple that come to mind.
Yeah, sure. So when did you make the decision to start coaching? I know you said earlier, like once you start learning jump rope, you kind of want to proselytize, right? You want to like spread the word, spread the good news.
Yeah. No, for sure. I think I started posting on Instagram like casually a while back, probably around when I was first got introduced to Spark Gear, very, very casually and kind of like chatting here or there with people. But even like then it was before Instagram was really used for jump rope. So like, you know, it was some of the OGs. Like I remember one of the first OGs was Chad, who now I think does a lot with cross rope and he's like one of their trainers. Like Chad and I would talk back in the day, you know, so if he probably remembers the yellow gym, he probably knows what that means. But back when I was jumping at a 24-hour fitness, but yeah, in terms of like formal coaching was like COVID. That's like 2020 out. It was like, okay, there's like the hard switch. I think COVID was a big deal for everyone all over the world for everything and lots of changes there. But yeah, I had done a bunch of coaching and stuff previous to that. So.
And how many people are you coaching?
Changes. It depends on what you're talking about, right? So like one-on-one versus like programs and stuff, different packages and stuff. But I actually don't have a count off the top of my head.
Yeah,
I don't have a number, but a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But people, as far as having coaching with you, you do one-on-one coaching, but then you also have programs on the site. Like, well, you've got Netflix, which is this huge helpful resource, but but then you've got a few different programs, right? Like there's the jump. And
So no, you're good. I can lay it out. So I have the two free things, which is the Kickstart, 14-day Kickstart, which is if you're like super duper brand new and you kind of want to like get your bearings, get like 30 single unders in a row, 50 single unders in a row, some footwork, and then maybe start playing around with some freestyle, you know? That's all there. And a lot of context of like, hey, here's what jump rope's about. Here's some things you should know about, all for free. I just really think that like, it doesn't make sense to me to like pay to get your single unders down. It's basic footwork. Like I don't see why you would do that. I think it makes sense to just kind of get in there. I know it's business wise, it's probably the better opportunity, but I think it should be free. The other free thing is a 7-day challenge, which is more if you're into like specifically the freestyle and you want to test yourself. I have a PDF list of, I believe it's 70 skills and combos in order of how you should do them. So both of those are free. So you can kind of get in there. In terms of coaching, the packages that I have right now, I have a one-on-one package, which obviously we would like in that we do a 1-hour virtual call plus some other stuff along the way too. I stay in contact throughout. It's a monthly subscription. We stay in contact and some other resources. And there's also Free Flow, which is like my primary program, which has like 150 something full-length modules. So every single session is a video module that breaks down the different drills that are in it. Yeah. And so it starts at literally just learn your basic cross, learn a side swing, and then all the stuff, like there's, I think there's just 50 lessons, specifically 50 built on cross, swing, and the combos you can do with that. And there's a lot there. Yeah. And so it kind of like really brings you through all the foundations that you would need, because jump rope is a system. It's a lot closer to software than to dance, like dance, at least I don't know dance super well, but I'm assuming like when you go through it, if everything feels so independent and different, and in like software, everything's very clearly related and variables are connected and blah, 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 right? Jump rope's closer to that than it is to dance, even though it appears to be closer to dance. So all of that, those first 50 lessons really help to build up exactly the patterns you're going to use later, all fixing all the mistakes now that usually creep up later on. And then after those 50, you got 100 more, a bunch of other stuff. Bunch of fun freestyle. So that's kind of where things stand right now.
Interesting. I was going to ask, like, when putting together a program like that, how long did it take you to realize, here's the progression that I want to take people through, or here's the logical progression of learning things? Because there's, a billion different combinations of things that you can do in jump rope, right? And if I start with basic bounce and then try to do releases next, I'm going to be really sad.
Yes, I've gotten some flack and some feedback of like, oh, there's no right way to, like, you don't learn in a certain order in jump rope. And then other people are like, I can only learn in the right order,
Yeah.
The thing that I've been really racking my brain over this last year, roughly 10 months a year, is like, which one is it? And a better question is, can it be both? And I don't really have an entire answer for you yet. Still kind of in the middle of like test. If you're asking the question, can you have both a linear and non-linear progress? Can you have someone go in order and also not need to go in order? I think the answer is yes. And I've been working on that, trying to put that into action, but it's still a little bit, too early. 100% tell.
But it seems like there's, it doesn't seem like there's a whole bunch of basic skills that, like, if you can get those down, they're the building blocks of everything else. One of the other people I interviewed recently, they were saying that once they got this basic foundation of skills, then adding other things on top of that was easier. And I know my experience, was basically I found some cool jumpers on YouTube and was like, oh my God, I got to do this. Like, how this is amazing. I love this dance rope stuff. And then followed a ton of people on Instagram, and you see people of all different skill levels. Like, you don't see a lot of people just doing basic bounce. You see all sorts of things, and everything looked like magic to me. And I wanted to try everything, but I felt like, I gotta get some basic footwork down. I gotta be able to, move on my feet before I start introducing other things. When someone is a new jumper and they're really wanting to learn more skills, what is a logical speed progression of learning skills? Like, how do you tell people, hey, I want you to do this today and then learn this tomorrow and this the next day? Or are we working on basic bounce for a month?
So I think rather than having a list, well, I'll say it this way, that you have prerequisite skills for everything, right? So we have to take it to the extreme. So like, you will not be able to do a cross if you cannot do a single under. It sounds kind of like, well, yeah, right. But like, we kind of need to start there. So if you want to do a toad cross, can you do a toad cross without doing a basic cross? Maybe. You probably like could brute force it, but man, that's going to be a struggle. And like, I'm not talking like, oh, you've done some jumping and you just haven't tried a cross yet. I mean, like, if you're doing a single under, if you've never done a side, so you've never done a cross, you cannot do those skills, and you go straight to a toad, you're going to really struggle, and you're probably not going to see success. If you do, it'll be either by accident or you will take a very, very long time and not be a fun process. So there are prerequisite skills if you want to have those prerequisite skills, but there are also soft prerequisite skills. So let's take, for example, a strength skill. If we have a double under frog, so you jump in the air, you rotate the rope underneath your feet, and you land in a handstand. Pretty intense skill. I think we can all agree, like, you need to know how to do a handstand before trying that. Because if you just chuck your body, you're probably going to hurt yourself pretty bad. Like, and even when you know how to do a handstand, you can still hurt your body pretty bad. Ask me how I know.
Yeah.
But if you have someone who's and you actually do see this relatively frequently, not all the time, but usually with push-ups, you have someone who's absurdly strong. Take a gymnast, right? A competitive level male gymnast, and you put a jump rope in his hand, and you go jump in the air, land in a handstand, but then like pull the rope underneath your foot. He's probably going to do it, but he never did a double under, or let's assume in this case, he hasn't done a double under before, right? He may not even need to know what a double under is at all, but certain skills, if the skill level for that item is so high, you can kind of jump to the next level. And so You have these hard prerequisites, you have these soft prerequisites. You need to kind of know what those are, which is very tricky because most times you just don't. You just try stuff, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
The framework that I tell everyone I coach and I try to talk about as much as possible online is that you have two different ways to train. You have training for completion and you have training for efficiency. They're related.
You talk about this.
Yeah, they're related, but the inverse of each other. So if you train for efficiency, you're trying to change your form. You're trying to improve it. You want to make your form better, which means you're going to sacrifice the success of the skill. You might have a mistake. You may fail the rep in quotes, right? But if you look back, if you take a video of what you're doing or if someone's watching you and you look at that rep and they go, yeah, you know what? You did make that change. You did move your arm here. You did use your wrist more. You did do that change. That rep is a success, even if the skill didn't work. So if you're doing your basic cross and one arm is like a lot higher than the other and you did a rep and then you brought that arm down and your hands were even, but you still missed because of whatever, doesn't matter. You're still good. Completion is the opposite. Completion is, it doesn't matter what it looks like. You just got to get done.
Get her done.
And you would think that like, oh, I don't want to I like good form. I shouldn't do that. Actually, you should, because and this is like, when I say I literally like 100% of every call I have with every person I coach. We talk about this at some point. And it's when you're drilling, it's good to drill. But if you do too much drilling, you can waste time and it can get frustrating and boring. And what you need to do is also try stuff that looks exciting that might be a little bit too hard for you. And it's fine if you can't do it right now, but you just give it a shot, because when you level up and you try stuff that's more difficult, the moment you do that, the stuff you were working on before gets easier. So for example, if we have a basic cross and a side swing to an open, and then we go immediately into like, hey, let's do side swing to cross, like no breaks, right? Swing, cross, and then maybe a second cross. There's a combo, right? Swing, cross, open. That's going to be a lot harder than just doing a cross by itself, especially if you're like brand new. And so you may not succeed at that combo, but working through that for 10, 15, 20 minutes, by the time you go back to that basic cross, you're like, oh yeah, this isn't a big deal. Like you might still like have to work on it for sure. But your brain changes. And that to me is one of the most important parts of completion training is to kind of feel that difference, because it accelerates your efficiency training. They work together that way. And also, like at the end of the day, like we are here to have fun. Competitors are trying to compete, so it's a little bit different. But like the majority of us, especially the adults, like we're here to like have fun. And so it doesn't matter if it takes long. It doesn't matter if you feel like you're slow at progressing. You're probably not anyway, but it doesn't matter if you are. All that matters is that you are seeing increase in your skills are getting better. They are improving at some rate, month to month, or like every 6 to 12 months is what I like to focus on. So yeah. I don't know if that answers your question. I kind of went a little off track, but there you go.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I really like that discussion of completion versus perfection, basically. I mean, because, and I had never really thought of it that way, but now that you mention the idea of trying something that you haven't, that stretches your skills basically, and sort of just getting it done without maybe it being beautiful, helping the thing that you learned before become easier. That's totally been my experience, but I never thought about it that way.
Well, no, the reverse is true too. If you never drill anything, you never work on your efficiency, you're going to get hard locked out of other skills later. Like you're just not gonna have a choice. It just won't work.
Right.
And a really simple but important example of this is when people learn the toad cross for the first time. I know the toad cross is like not the most popular for people when they're looking at, believe me, I have plenty of data to support this. People don't like the toad cross as much until they do it. But when they first practice it, they'll swap their hand positions. So when you do a toad cross, you put your hands in a cross, and then the hand that is underneath, or that is sandwiched between your top arm and your stomach, should go underneath the leg that it is pointing to. So if my right arm is underneath, it points to my left leg, it goes underneath that leg. What a lot of jumpers will do is they'll almost get this right, but they'll take their top arm that is pressing down on the other arm, and they'll put that one underneath the leg. And so you can imagine, if you're in that position, if you're in a normal toad cross, your top arm is free, it can move around, it's all good. If you're in the other version, that arm that's underneath is stuck. It cannot move away, and it's locked. Yes. And so that version, we would call it a tucked toad or a T-toad. Very different. And so is it doable? Absolutely. Is it way, way harder? Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And so people will be like, the toad cross is like impossible. Like there's just no way I can do it, which makes sense because if you haven't worked on a toad before and you go to a tucked toad, back to what we were talking about earlier in terms of prerequisite skills and stuff, it's going to be pretty much impossible because like it just doesn't make any sense. And so this is where like working on your drills, working on efficiency, understanding the details of it, and taking the time to like just do a toad toe catch and like stop, check your arms and see if you're good. That is really important because then you go, oh, my arms are in the wrong spot. Now let me just change them real quick. Oh, okay. Now this starts to feel like reasonable. And so you need them both, but it's just a case of balance, right? You need to have both completion and efficiency training. The efficiency is not about being perfect. It's about understanding the details and understanding your jumping. And when you decide you want to make a change or adjust something, you can, and you know what to do, or you have some type of a feeling to work on. So,
Yep. When you're working with new or newer adult jumpers, what are like the top 3 struggles that you see them have, or mistakes that people make, or misconceptions that they have when they start?
Yeah. So we're kind of already going through it because completion and efficiency is big. I think what's important is the things that is the way that they don't realize how they're thinking. And it's the thinking that it's so simple when it's laid out, it is like nearly impossible to bridge the gap unless someone says it. And so the first one is the comparison. Everyone ends up comparing their skills to other people as if they should be learning the same way. Like, so let me lay it out for you. If you have, let's see, the same environment, meaning weather environment, the same physical resources available to you, a gym, same type of gym. If you have the same mat, the same jump rope, the same physical history, surgeries or health things, if you have the same sports history, if you stretch the same, if you have the same amount of time per week to allocate towards a jump rope, if you have the exact same meal plan, if you have the same body structure, if you have all that, then you can compare yourself. Turns out it never happens because no one has the same thing. So when people go online, they go, oh, this person learns so fast. It's like, yeah, but like, were they jumping for 3 hours every single day? Also, what does it matter? Because your skills got better, right? Like you a month ago could barely do a cross. And now like a cross doesn't even register in your head anymore because you're so focused on EB or mic release or these other things. You just do the cross automatically. And so what's exciting about jump rope is also an opportunity for comparison, right? There's always more to do. So it can, if you're not paying attention, it can seem like you're always behind. And so you have to really take the time to remember, like, as long as you're seeing progress every, monthly, assuming you're training, right? You can't be like, I practiced once, I didn't see progress. Like that doesn't count, right? But that's a big thing. And then being very specific about when you do learn stuff, not jumping the gun from never succeeding a skill to trying to want to be perfect right away. This is the other thing that I talk to literally every single person. And you would be surprised. I have folks that I've worked with literally for years, like nonstop. And we will have this conversation like once a year, sometimes more. It's like, we'll learn a skill and trying to think of a good example of this. Probably the EB cross is one of the better examples. People love that one. They want to learn the EB cross. And so it'll go from like, I don't even understand how I'm supposed to jump like that. Like my hands behind my back, like what's going on, right? And then they'll get one successful rep and it'll be like, in the context of, let's say we did a coaching session. This is usually the way it plays out. We'll do a coaching session to get the first EB cross, super awesome, feeling pumped. And I'll get a message from them like later that week of like, I'm still working on my EB. It's just so horrible. Like it's not good. And I'm like, take it easy. Like you got your first one a couple days ago, fast forward 3 more weeks. And it's like, yeah, I'm getting my EB. It's just not perfect. Like, it's just like, it's so bad still. And what this comes down to is once that first rep is done, the brain just switches to like, why can't I do this every single time? Because that's what I see other people do. Yeah. And it's like what you want to do. And the solution that I use for this when I'm talking to jumpers, especially on coaching calls, is what I call compulsories. Not a unique idea, but I like to talk about it a lot. This comes from like gymnastics. You have a certain group of skills. It could be one. I usually like to say like 1 to 5 skills. You could do more if you wanted to. Luke Boone did this, and because Luke's crazy. Luke did this with like 50 skills every single session. But with compulsories, you take Luke's is different, but it's like a similar idea. With the way I like to use compulsories for people I coach or anyone who's listening, you take those 1 to 5 skills, you do 10 reps, only 10 reps of that skill on both sides if you can. Sometimes you can, sometimes like there's still value even if you fail all of them, but that's a different thing. So you do those 10 reps and it's a stop between each rep. So if you have basic cross, you do a couple single unders, do that cross, back to a single under, stop the rope. 10 times, both sides, and then you count how many times you succeeded. It's that simple. But you got to do it every single time you show up, and you need to not compare yesterday's practice to today's. You compare this week's average to last week's average. So for the cross, if we do cross, let's say like I'm jumping and I do 10, and let's say my dominant side, I get 6 out of 10, and then I get 7 out of 10, then I get 4 out of 10. Then my non-dominant is probably less. It's probably like 2, 3, and 4. I'm just looking for that to go up by like 1 or 2 every week or every month. So then like maybe the next week I average around 7 out of 10, right? And then maybe then, 3 more weeks goes by and I average 8 or 9 out of 10. That's what we're looking for. And so when you get to a 10 out of 10 skill, absolutely. But what it takes to get to a 10 out of 10 skill will be a different process than what it took to get to a 4 or a 5 out of 10. So basically, the way you should look at your skills is 1 out of 10 is like, that's just getting it for the first time. And what it takes to get to that first rep is very different than going from I've done 1 rep, now I want to get it more times than not. More times than not translates to like the 6 to 8 out of 10, 6 to 9 out of 10 range, right? The 10 out of 10, or what I like to call 100 out of 10, because that's really what people mean. 10 out of 10 is not really, it's actually what they want every single time they try it. They want to succeed and make it look good. So that's like actually 100 out of 100, right? That's what we're really talking about. So that level takes, every single one of these is a different process. And I can go through it if you want, but these are kind of like the main things that people tend to miss with their jumping is the comparison and the perfection. And so like really sitting down and like just write it out or say it out loud. Like, what is it that you're actually expecting here? Because the second you say it, you're like, oh, that's actually kind of not very reasonable, is it? I'm like, no, but does it mean you're never going to get there? No, you can get there. We just have to be a little bit more patient and be a little bit more specific about how we're approaching the training and trying to get there.
Yeah. Cool. What about like when you're working with folks, what about warm-ups? Like how do you warm up? How do you advise jumpers to warm up before they actually get into it?
First bit of advice that's the most useful. You're going to think I'm playing a prank here, but do it. Yeah. Like, oh, it's all good. Yeah. That's honestly the amount of times I've had conversations about warm-ups and then like followed up with the person. I'm like, so how'd it go? They're like, oh, I didn't do it. And I'm like, okay, cool, sweet. Like, all right. So like literally you should start by doing it. Any warm-up is going to be better than no warm-up. So do that. In terms of specific stuff, you need to kind of literally get the body warm. So if it's cold or like you're in an area where it's like, you got to be able to like physically get warm and like a little bit of sweat, nothing crazy, but like just warm up. So that could be literally a million different things. For jump rope, especially for someone who's newer to jump rope, I would probably recommend not using jump rope as a warm up. You can later on for sure, but it tends to just end up being too much volume in the day. So move around, do a little bit of jogging in place, go run a lap, just bounce from side to side, do some shadow boxing, like whatever, or, put on some music and start flailing your body and dancing, That's
like, what I do.
Yeah, exactly. And so like, it literally just gets you loose and it gets your muscles like working and the blood flowing.
Right.
Once you've got that, do some stretching. There's a lot of debate over what types of stretches are best, right? You can have fun going into that debate online. Everyone is highly opinionated. As long as you're actually getting those muscles stretched out and it's safe, and you're actually feeling the muscle stretch, you're good. Most people avoid stretching because they do it in a way that is extraordinarily painful and way more than it needs to be. All you need to do to stretch is get to the point where you feel the tension in your muscle. Then just hold it there for 30 seconds and then just breathe and be calm. You don't want to sit there and this is a mistake that I have made over and over and over, over and over and over. I don't know why it's a thing, but like I will stretch and then go to the point of like massive pain. That's actually counterintuitive because the point of stretching is to get the muscles to effectively unlock there are things, these little devices in your muscle called Golgi tendon bodies. Devices sounds technological. It's not that. It's just the way the muscle works is that there's a thing called Golgi tendon bodies that are basically the safety locks for the muscle. And so they literally like lock together and do not allow the muscle to stretch too far.
Okay.
And so like, that's why when you start stretching initially and you're not warmed up, you're like, wow, I'm really stiff. But if you actually just pick your 5 favorite stretches and repeat them for 30 seconds each on both sides for 3 rounds, you're going to feel a lot more stretched out because you're actually letting your body like know, like, we're good. Like, I'm not doing some kind of crazy activity and like about to snap my muscles. Like, I'm just warming up, you know? And it's like, oh, okay, cool. And so then those Golgi tendon bodies kind of like unlink a little bit and kind of let the muscle be a little longer.
A little flexible.
There's a little more to that too. There's connective tissue. Connective tissue is kind of a different deal than muscles, but it is a different deal. But in terms of the stretching at the beginning, if you pick, again, those, 5-ish, you can do more, you can do less, favorite stretches or just whatever you kind of dig, and do them for 30 seconds each. And don't push it. Just get to the point where you can feel a little tension on your muscle and just breathe and just relax and like really focus on letting the tension go from your body, because that's when you actually do get the result from stretching. And then guess what? It ends up being kind of nice. Who would have thought? That's a thought. Stretching, feeling good,
Yeah.
And it actually can. You just have to be very patient and go very slow with it. And I think that's where people get stuck, is they don't want to spend 15 or 20 minutes doing that, which you don't need that. You can get it done in 10. It's just that if you actually are really taking the time to do these sets and reps and doing it this way, it tends to end up a little bit longer. There are definitely times where I've spent 40 minutes warming up.
Yeah.
So, yeah. You don't need to do that, but like, that's kind of the structure I would say for the warm up. First of all, do it. And second of all, get the body like warm, and then pick some stretches to just repeat over and over and over. I'm sure there are some stretches that are better than others.
Do you have favorites?
Oh yeah, I have favorites. I like the front split. I'm a little partial towards that because I did a little bit of gymnastics training when I was a kid, and so I like that one. It's pretty painful, to be honest with you. Like, I can't really do it where it's not painful, so there's that problem again. But I do it anyway because it really stretches out my hips like better than other options that I've ever found. So I like that one a lot.
So when you say the front split, are you putting one foot forward, one foot back, or are you doing side to side and then bending forward?
I do side splits as well, but I like the front split a lot for the hips. And I try to push it as much as I can. But again, like if I'm actually training that, I'll do like 2 to 3 sets of it, which takes kind of a lot. It's almost like its own workout because that one's a little more intense. But I like that one. I like, obviously, a calf stretch. Can't go wrong with a calf stretch. Kind of need it with jump rope,
Yeah. It's a wise one.
It's a wise one, yeah. I like the couch stretch as well. I don't know if you've seen that one.
No, what's that one?
So basically, imagine you're like you have a couch behind you, and you kind of go on the ground. You have your knees on the floor. You put one leg up in like a lunge, so it goes in front of you. The other leg, you kind of go on your knee, but you stick your ankle kind of on the couch, and you put your shin against the base of the couch. If you look up couch stretch, you'll see it very quickly, but it's a very deep quad stretch. So not ideal if you're not comfortable with stretching your quads, but if you do a lot of jumping, it's pretty great. So I like that one a lot. That's definitely a favorite of mine. I think those are probably the top.
One of the things you mentioned that I think about a lot, and I don't hear people talk about a lot really, is breathing in jump rope. And I wondered, like, do you have to coach people about that? Like, I try to be very conscious of my breathing, whether I'm stretching and warming up or while I'm jumping, just because to me, a lot of the benefit is really meditative, like I stress release. And I've found that when I'm trying to learn a trick and I'm frustrated about it or something like that, if I pay attention, my breathing gets erratic. But if I focus on my breathing, then things tend to flow better.
Breathing, people do ask me about it occasionally. I don't have the greatest answer for you, because if we talk about breathing, it comes back down to like where the heart rate is at. That's really what it is. And so it seems like it's jump rope related, but like if you go run, like there's a way to think about breathing for sure. But if you go run a mile and you've never run a mile and you're like struggling through the entire thing, the only thing is like, just make sure you do breathe, because like you're kind of gonna have a hard time like figuring out the breath at first. So I think breath work is probably a little bit more on at least the intermediate side, because you need to have a skill level where you have, like, obviously, like with you can focus on it, right? Because you have a skill level where you're actually able to kind of chill out and like focus. But I don't think you need to focus on it necessarily when we get into like super, like if we get into the completion side of training where you're like doing hard stuff for the first time, like maybe it's part of slowing down or like focusing on the change you want to make. But on that level, not so much. I think when you are hanging out and kind of cruising, let's say a minute plus of just jumping relaxed, right? Like if you're at that level where you can do that, then you can breathe. Then you can think about breathing. I think it's just whatever the tempo is that works for you. I think maybe like in for 2 to 3 jumps, out for 2 to 3 jumps can work. Yeah. But again, that's very much based on like, where is your heart rate at? You know? So.
Yeah. I've posted a few videos recently of me jumping in the, below freezing temperature, and you can see the breath. You can monitor my breathing very easily.
I don't know how you do that. I don't have that in me. I respect that.
Yeah. It's the Viking blood, I guess.
There you go. Nice.
When you're coaching jumpers, what is a good practice length? How long are you advising your folks to practice?
It's hardest to figure out when you're brand new because you're not really sure what is too far yet.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's tricky. The thing you want to avoid is going so far where you get shin splints, right? And so what shin splints or any kind of injury that could come specifically from jump rope, what it means is you've done too much too soon. And so you might be able to physically accomplish a lot in a session, but the endurance, the total volume across a week, it was too much, right? And so how much you can do really depends on prior sport history. It really depends on prior jumping history. If you have not done other sports, if you're just brand new getting into it, and like this is like you're just getting in right now, this is the first time like kind of trying to do some kind of activity, or jump rope's the first thing you've done, start with a very specific number, maybe 50, 75 total jumps. Start there, right? And I'm talking about someone who's like just picked up a jump rope, brand new. Start there, and count, or to some degree know the exact number. See how you feel the next day. And what you want to do is you want to undershoot it. You want to do too little. That's what we're looking for, because if you do too little, then you're fine. You can hop back in the next session and you can do maybe a little, like 5-10% more. Go from 50 to 60, go from 75 maybe to like 100-ish, right? And so when you know the volume, when you know the total amount of jumping you're doing, then you actually can make a very clear adjustment. If you're just jumping and you're like, I don't know, it hurts. It's like, well, what were you doing? Like, how do we work with that? Also, technique is a huge piece of this too. So you might 50 total jumps, staying on the balls of your feet, nice and relaxed and light, versus 50 jumps of slamming your heels into the floor and hitting the ground very hard and bending your knees a lot, is a very different 50 jumps.
Absolutely. Right? I can testify to that.
Yeah.
Some of my early jumping, I was like slamming my legs down, having fun dancing like crazy, and go home and wow, my knees, this does not feel great.
No, exactly. And so that's like when it comes to the volume, like I've had jumpers who were competitive athletes prior in different sports who will literally do like 3 to 4 sessions of 3 hours a week. So they're clocking like 9 to 12 total hours of jump rope practice. That's obviously you're not consistently jumping the entire time. This is more of like a freestyle practice where you do a combo and you stop, but they're still pushing it pretty hard. But I've also had jumpers where you got to squeeze in what you can get. You've got 30 minutes and you're trying to not stop, and you're trying to just keep going like as much as you possibly can. I have someone I'm working with who does freestyle. He does learn in pieces. He's a lot more focused on workouts and having a consistent plan for himself. So what we did is we started with rounds of 30 seconds, and we would kind of, I like freestyle. I'm going to have him do a little freestyle, but like we would start with 30 seconds of basic jumping and then throwing in whatever he could do, maybe a side swing here or there. No rhyme or reason, just kind of go with it, right? Do 30 seconds. And it started off nice and slow and easy. Then we worked on keeping the knees a little bit straighter. They're going to bend, but just not a crazy amount of bending on the balls of his feet like we talked about. And we went from, 5 to 10 total rounds in a session with a lot of rest of 30 seconds. And over the months and over the years of his training, we've gotten up to the point where now we'll do 18 to 20 minutes of total work time, not resting and stuff, but of total like active jumping time, usually in sets of 2 minutes. Okay. So he'll do 2 minutes of jumping nonstop. He's relaxed on his feet. Sometimes he has a metronome where he jumps to like 120 to 125 BPM. A lot of times he just has music and he's rocking out, and he'll go for those 2 minutes, and then we'll take a rest for roughly 2 minutes, give or take 30 seconds or a minute. Then we'll hop right back into the next round and go until he's done 18 to 20 total minutes of work time. And that volume works very well for him. But sometimes he's like, I'm feeling a little bit of like my ankle, my shin feeling, I'm like, cool, let's drop the volume down to 12 minutes and see how that feels. And so he'll do that his next session, and then he's feeling better. He'll hold at that 12 minutes for a few sessions, go, okay, I'm feeling better. Let's move it back up. Right. And so like, that's kind of an example of someone who's a little bit more like workout focused. There's not really an answer for this in terms of freestyle, because with freestyle, it's just like, well, if you're obsessed, the harder thing is to pull you away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you just don't want to stop. So yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I've injured myself multiple times because of that. Like, just one more time with this song, just one more time.
Well, the injuries, tell me about it. The amount of times that I'm like, well, if I just, it's okay. Like, I'm fine. Like, I've done this a lot of times, it's like, well, but the body has to be ready and conditioned. So
yeah.
Yeah.
And I've learned the hard way that it's not, for me, it's not worth pushing it too much, because I want to be able to jump tomorrow,
Yes.
And I have so many times done just one more spin of this song, or one more, 10 minutes of the playlist or whatever. And then the next day I get out of bed and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm an old man.
Totally shot. Yeah. No, I think a huge thing for people to remember is that, like everyone's got some kind of like injury or unique thing about their anatomy that makes them they should focus on something specific with their form. I don't know why my left trap loves to get pulled on pull-ups. Don't know why. I've pulled my left trap so many times on pull-ups. I don't know. I've messed up my lower back a couple times. So like, those are things that I have to think about. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I just have to make sure that if I'm doing pull-ups, I do them consistently, and I'm doing them very gradually, and I'm doing stuff that works my back, and I'm staying flexible so that I don't pull it again. I need to make sure like my core, my hamstrings, glutes, and quads are all balanced, and that I'm doing all of those consistently so that my lower back stays bulletproof and that I'm good to go. Right. And so there's a lot of, this is more of a total fitness kind of subject, but like with jump rope, at some point, you're probably going to notice something is a little bit off. Right. And the more you can define what that is and have a plan for it and test it out, the more you're like, I'm feeling that thing again. Let me go back to that routine of doing these exercises that I know work for me.
Yeah.
And not to circle back to what we talked about before, but like, this is like sometimes when you stretch, it's like so painful and it doesn't even make sense why. And it's because your muscles are imbalanced. The muscle you're trying to stretch is already stretched too thin, is not strong enough, or is too strong and has been working too much to compensate for another muscle. And because of that imbalance, you're like physically not able to get the results that you should.
Yeah.
And it's not that stretching sucks. It's that we need to kind of make sure that everything's all set. And jump rope's a system. The body is a system, right? There's a front and back to all the muscles. Every muscle works with another muscle. So a little bit of a tangent, but there you go.
Yeah. So what about cooldowns? Do you cool down? Do you have a cool down routine?
Pretty much same advice. Again, first thing, do it.
Yeah.
Besides warming up, that's the second one that gets forgotten,
Yeah.
You should definitely do that. I think it depends on what you're doing. So like, I think I talked with Selena about this a long time ago on a podcast, or maybe, I don't know, at some point we discussed it. But if you're doing really intense, like really intense training, like on the sports side of things, especially for competitive athletes, you need a cool down because your body has done so much stuff. It has produced so much energy. There are a lot of different things happening in your body that allow you to perform that way, that you've got a lot of residual stuff that can be cycled out by a very simple, low intensity, moving the body around. And so you need that. For jumpers who are just jumping casually, or like they're having fun, but it's not particularly it's like getting you working, but it's not like crazy. You can benefit from the cool down. I think what's most important is just to actually get the body to relax. You'd be surprised how many times the two things I'd recommend is obviously at the end of your session when you're still in it, do your stretches. Do the same stretches you did at the beginning. Like you can get fancy with it if you want to, but just do the same stuff. Maybe prioritize like your calves because you're feeling them more.
Right.
But like actually do 2 to 3 rounds of 30 seconds to a minute of each of those and breathe slowly and feel your body relax. Mm-hmm. And that's like amazing. The second thing, this has been a huge hack for me. I am just really good at like my body gets all locked up and stiff at the end of the day. So if you just stretch before bed, like if you're not going to cool down because you hear me talking about this and you're like, yeah, and then you go to your workout and you're like, never mind, Nate, like that's what's going to happen. Sure, ignore that one. But at the very least, do like 10 minutes before you go to bed. Do some side splits, stretch your quads, stretch your calves, stretch your lats, right? Just some basic stuff like arms over your head, like leaning to the side, stretch out the lat, like, and just hold. But the trick is not to like be hanging out and like left, right, like touch my leg. Okay, I'm done. It's like stay there for a second, like hold the position and do that again. 10 minutes is assuming transition time. You've basically got like 4 to 5 stretches for 30 seconds each side. Right. Mm-hmm. And so if you just do that, your body's going to feel better. You're going to sleep so much better, so much better. So that would be kind of the recommendation there.
All right. Well, I'm going to have to put a reminder on my phone, stretch before bed tonight.
I'm telling you, like if you do it, you're going to wake up and go, wow, that was some pretty good sleep. Yeah.
So Nate, what is next for you in your jump rope journey? And what I'm also curious, like, what is your vision for the jump rope community? Like, what's next?
I think we got a lot of opportunity. There's a lot that we haven't touched on too much, like the Olympics and stuff like that. Probably don't really need to get into that as much, but I think that jump rope, like for everyone who's listening to this, you believe that jump rope is a sport, right? I think there's a huge ability for it to be, I think it's inevitable that it will be seen as a sport, but it takes a lot to get there. So for me, it's kind of just focusing on like, what are the projects, what are the systems that are needed to actually support that happening? There's a lot of gaps in the community, like huge gaps right now that I'm like genuinely shocked have not been swooped up by some of the bigger companies. And so like, I think that what it really is just combining what is the absolute fastest, best, most usable knowledge for jumpers to get the most success the fastest, and how do we connect everybody? And how do we like have fun and hang out? And it's like, obviously, if you've been in the jump rope world for a little bit, you're like, an app and meetups, which is currently where it's at. But what I'm trying to think about is like what is the absolute best it could possibly be? Like what is the maximum, right? Like what does that look like? And so I don't necessarily have 100% of an answer yet. Yeah. But I think that there's still a whole lot of work to be done in terms of, well, this might just, I don't know if this might just be a me thing, but like when I look at my own coaching materials and stuff, I think that it's good and it's successful. It doesn't feel complete though. I'm not sure it ever will. I think sometimes like that's kind of the thing is you just never feel like you're done, right?
Sure.
Which is a lesson in itself, but how far can we push it? What's the maximum we can get out of this? And what's the best that we can connect everyone and like really come together, right? Like, cause meetups are phenomenal. Workshops are amazing. Like you need them, you know? But the problem is we don't have enough of them.
Yeah.
Because they're hard to facilitate.
Out here, in the middle of the country.
That's what I'm saying. Like it's
yeah. I know there's a meetup in London on July 5th. I wish I could go to that one. That would be fun.
And that's the thing is you get these one-off, well, Chris does his every year, but you get these single events that are really cool, but like we just need a lot more of them. And it's tough because like even for me, like this is I would love to go do that, but like that's a whole lot to go invest in and do in terms of like time and like stepping away from other stuff as well. Sure. Whereas it would make a lot of sense to like have multiple across kind of like concerts, right? You got like the tour that happens all over the place, but it'd be nice if it was very consistent. People could kind of look forward to it and kind of plan around it versus it being like a vacation every time. Like a vacation happens occasionally and you really have to plan for that usually, unless it's like, local, but like you still really have to plan for that. How can we make it more of a permanent thing? How can it be in all? And you get this in some communities, like in Canada, you've got some communities that it's a solid group of people that hang out a lot. Obviously, like in London or, in England, there's a really solid community of people who tend to like get together and meet up. There's some jumpers in LA, but the meetups I think are not too plentiful. We've workshops before, but like it takes so much to put those on, So you've got like someone like Chris who's planned his entire year of his business around having meetups, right? Because he's decided that that's something that he wants to do, right? Which is great. The amount of like work and intensity and resources that goes into that is insane. And so, which is awesome, but like, how do we make that something that is easier to duplicate?
Right.
Or like a process that can be kind of copied and pasted, So I don't know if that really answers your question, but there you go.
Yeah. So you don't currently have any meetups or in-person workshops planned?
No, I don't have any plan. I've done some in the past. I will do more for sure in the future. I just don't have like an actual date planned. Yeah.
Sure. Are you going to London for that meetup?
I don't plan to now because it's that, stepping away from a bunch of other stuff too, which is pretty challenging.
It's a little bit of a commute too.
A little bit. Yeah. A little bit. Yeah. Time change and everything.
Yeah. Well, man, Nate, I just really appreciate you coming on and talking to me. I guess we've covered all sorts of advice, but for somebody who is maybe listening in and thinking, I'd like to get started with jump rope. I'm not really sure if it's for me or whatever, but it looks really cool. What advice do you have for them?
The looking really cool is enough as it is. It really is, because like once you see something that is interesting, you don't need to know what it is. You just need to start and kind of work through it. And that's where obviously a lot of stuff online for free, including my stuff. I've tried to make it for that reason. Other stuff is also really good. You just have to keep going, because every single jumper I've ever talked to, all of them, zero exception, has said to me, I'm doing skills that I never thought that I could do.
Yeah.
Right? Whether they've worked with me or not, they end up doing, and that the reason is, the truth about jump rope is so much of the stuff you see is really attainable. As long as you're able to like 20 to 30 jumps as a beginning point, not in a row, not without a mistake, but like your body can jump 20 to 30 times, right? You've got access to getting a jump rope and you can like get access to these videos. If you've got that, like you're going to be able to figure it out. You just have to stick with it and then conquer whatever internal stuff comes along the way. Jump rope will pull in front of you all of the internal stuff that you are thinking about every day, whether good or bad. So you have to be ready for that and be ready to kind of just keep moving forward and just understand that it's not about comparing yourself to others. It's about recognizing that if all these people have done it, then you can do it too.
Yeah.
The time is irrelevant. It will happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I talked to Kathy Jumps the other week, and
nice.
She has the 3 Ps, the patience, perseverance, and practice. And to me, that's everything for jump rope. It's like 99% of the difficulty is showing up. And once you show up and practice, you will get better, right?
To be honest with you, I might disagree a little bit.
Okay.
I feel like the showing up is actually kind of fun, because you're like, let's get in there. It's once you get there, it's what do I do? How do I do it? Am I even doing this correctly? And I think, to me, that's where the education part is so important, because I think that if I could just like magic button, click it, and like you just like knew what I knew now, right? Like I could just transplant everything immediately to your head. Yeah. In the next 3 months, you would literally like be unrecognizable, because like all the information is there. It's just a matter of doing it. Right. And you might still be missing like the way certain things feel, but you'd be like, I got it. I know how to approach this. That's what I want to pass on, is like all that. Like if you actually get an idea of like what to do and like how to adjust your practice, that's when you kind of get out of your own way and move forward. You know, the not showing up, I think, happens when all the negative stuff takes over. So like when you start thinking about how so-and-so is doing better than you, or how so-and-so's skills look good, or how your reps aren't as perfect as they should be, or how you're just going so slowly, like you just find, like people just find like a million different ways to like prove not really prove, but like think that they're just not doing things right.
Yeah.
And it's like, but those aren't even actually rooted in anything real, you know? And so I think that's kind of like, if you really understand that piece of things, it gets a lot easier to keep showing up because you're not fighting yourself by going there. Because if you're talking trash to yourself every time you go jump rope, you're not going to want to go jump rope.
Yeah.
Especially when you're getting whipped all the time too. It's like not a nice feedback loop.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
No, I noticed, you know, sometimes in the beginning, I had some pretty negative self-talk when I would trip up or whatever, like, oh, come on, dummy, you can do this better than that. And I quickly got out of that because I realized, first of all, it doesn't help anything. Like it never helps to have that negative self-talk and to sort of switch the paradigm into, hey, I'm here and I'm trying and I'm making mistakes and I can make mistakes because that's part of getting better.
Yes.
Made a lot of difference for me.
Yes. And also, if we were to get a little more granular on that too, with the mistakes, if you know what the mistake is, more or less, my hand is too high in a cross. Okay. I'm not using, my wrists are literally stuck and they are not moving.
Yeah.
That's actually valuable.
Yeah.
So again, splitting it apart and not going from, I've never done a toad cross to I need to do this 100 out of 100 times. Go from, I've never done a toad cross. So what exactly is a toad cross? And like figuring out what those hand positions are. Okay, cool. Now I got that level. Okay, I'm trying it, but something's weird. What's going on? Oh, my foot is really high from the floor. I wonder why. I should probably jump lower. Okay, well, this is hard. Maybe I should wait a little bit longer. Like just working through like, okay, well, I've identified this piece. Let me work with this piece, right? Because it's hard to build a house. It is very easy to nail a piece of wood to another piece of wood.
Right.
Right. And so if you just get real specific about stuff, and it sounds like this is kind of how you've approached things, like it makes it a lot more enjoyable because again, that's what we're here for, just to hang out and have fun in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that, to speak to what you're saying there, like this is why your videos are so amazing to me, because you have been through that. You have thought through all of those little things and you illustrate them so clearly in your videos. Not just with your words, because I don't think you talk too much. I enjoy.
I'm glad.
But the quality of your videos, again, the different angles, the slow-mo, it really, like, I can't recommend your training highly enough. And to anybody who's listening to this, if you guys don't know Nate KG, go subscribe now to like his Instagram and his YouTube and sign up for his free programs. Pay him to be your coach because you will get better.
There's the plug.
There we go.
That's funny.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate that. It's definitely it's a lot of fun. So
yeah. Jump rope is like the most fun thing I've done as an adult. I can't get enough of it. Right?
It's crazy. So not to drag this out too. Like I know like we're kind of coming up on time, but I just want to point out like for me growing up, it was me and other kids jump roping. Every adult would be like, that's nice. Like they would grab a rope and go like, oh look at me, I'm like the kids. 2 jumps. Yeah. Okay, go back to it, kids. Yeah. You know, or like, with the only exception I saw was like this woman at the gym that I used to train at very, very early on who would do 10 minutes of jump rope nonstop. That was the only person I ever saw doing jump rope. And she must have been like a boxer or a fighter or like something.
Yeah.
And that was it. And now I spend all my time talking to adults who pick up a jump rope, they do skills, and they have the exact same responses as kids. It's like, it blows my mind.
Yeah, it's got to feel super rewarding, right?
Well, like as a kid, like my team, we had a lot of fun, you know, but after a certain point, like kind of people started to just kind of drop off. They had their interest. It was great. And they kind of moved on, which is very common with kids in sports for sure. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I'm just getting started. And my friends, I love my friends, like everything's cool. I didn't have a whole lot of folks to talk about jump rope. And so I feel like now I just talk about jump rope all the time. Mm-hmm. And it's like really satisfying because all this stuff that I've nerded out on for years and years and years is like, that's my life. And so it's really fun.
Yeah. It's awesome to do what you love, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Nate, thank you again for coming on and talking to me. This has been super fun. And thank you for everything you do for the community, for putting out such great content. Just love it.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. This was really fun chatting with you.
Yeah, my pleasure, man.
Hey, friends. Thanks for hanging out on the Jump Rope Podcast. We genuinely appreciate your spending your precious jumping recovery time with us. If you had a skip-tastic time, or even if you had a pretty decent time, please smash that subscribe button wherever you get your podcasts. And hey, why not toss us a 5-star rating while you're at it? It really helps new jumpers discover the show. Got friends? Of course you do. Spread the Jump Rope love. Tell your friends, your family, your neighbor, that rando at the grocery store checkout, anyone who needs more Jump Rope joy in their life. So until next time, keep jumping, keep laughing, and remember, life's too short not to skip with a smile. Catch you in the next jump.